Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Gulfstream. Today, Ron Nicoletti, along with Ashley Mayu. The main track is fast. Turf course will be listed as good when we start the day today. And if you're a horse racing fan, this is a very exciting day. Besides our 12 races, Ashley, we've got the 147th Kentucky Derby coming up a little later on this afternoon.
I'm really looking forward to it. We'll get all of our races in, then maybe I can sneak home to watch the Kentucky Derby live. But I think it's a competitive race, and we're talking about Kentucky Derby Day, but here there's still 12 races on the card.
Yeah, and look at that beautiful fountain up there. It looks pretty nice. So fast main track, good turf course, as I said. Probably there we go. They got us on there. He's probably trying to adjust me to make me look half as nice as you look today.
Had to dress up a little bit, even though it's not Derby Day here. I, have to be in the spirit for it. But I have a question. We're still fast and good today. Did it rain by you yesterday?
It did not rain by me yesterday, and I went out and checked, and it must have rained again here today, or it's still wet. And I was looking at the weather last night, not to belabor the point, but it got like an inch of rain around here, on Friday, which we had nothing out west. So with that said, good turf course. The races were really nice yesterday on the turf. They ran the course, looked like it was pretty fair. Got lots to get to today. We're going to go right into the first race. A mile on the turf. Maiden claim is throwing up $16,000. You got an early pick 5 ticket.
Looking at the sequence today, I did spread here in the opener. I used 3 horses in here. Love Life, who I liked the effort 2 back from. The number 5, Lazaretto. And then the 11, Sweeney's Cat, who I think's tough off of those last 2 efforts. They were both pretty solid. Then in race 2, I used 2 horses once again. And just looking at this race in general, we got 2-year-olds. Now, I know there is a horse in here that's made a start, but I went with 2 first-time starters. The number 3, Trust Our Journey for trainer Carlos David. The number 6, Cajun Puzzler, because trainer Mike Yates does a tremendous job with first-time starters and can get these 2-year-olds ready to roll. Race 3, I spread in here. Really didn't have a strong opinion. I think the main 2, though, are Florado, the number 2, as well as the number 3, Dinner at 5. But I did toss Starship Blanca in there as well. Race 4, I went 2 deep. I used the number 4, Triple Jeopardy, and the number 6, Majestic Street, who was part of the pace last time out in the first turf start. So I think that should be to his benefit today. And then in that final leg, just used 2 runners in here. The number 11, Smart Spending, I have a feeling will take a lot of the action. But the number 6, Italian Twins, 5-1 morning line. This one's out of the Mike Maker barn, and I liked the last 2 turf efforts, so looking for some value underneath. Overall, though, $36.
Yeah, ridden by Edwin Gonzalez at the Italian Twins. So this first race this afternoon, tough one. I went with the 11. Sweeney's Cat is making the 3rd start of his current form cycle. I think he took a positive step forward. Matter of fact, let's go back and show you this last race. You're going to watch this horse going up the backstretch. He is the number 5 that afternoon, and you're just going to see him, really have to steady sharply in this race. You're going to see it coming up, and just got to put on the brakes. And anytime that happens, you stop the horse's momentum. And it was a steady for a little bit of a while. Just got boxed in. But I like the way this horse tipped out in the stretch and came running late. So always for me when I handicap, when I see that, I really respect the horse that comes on and runs. Now, no comparison. Couldn't wheel in the. That was the odds-on favorite in that race. That was red flag alert. So I thought to just run second after that early trouble, and I think an easier spot, put this one on top.
Still the same level today, but I agree. I do think this is an easier spot. Blinkers on, Paco staying aboard, and I just thought 3rd start since January, because this one had a little bit of a freshening, could be the right move. But based off those last 2, those performances stood out to me.
Well, you went with the number 2, Love Life, in second. And the horses, when I looked at the morning line, I got some bombers underneath this horse today. So let's hear about the 2, and that is Love Life.
This one's out of the Kathy Ritvo barn. If you look at that most recent start, gave the field a little bit of an advantage after a slow start off the break and just flattened from there. And I think the slow start certainly hindered his ability, just had to make up ground and just really couldn't do it. You can only go for so long. Exiting that same race as the replay we just showed with Sweeney's Cat. So this one ended up 4th, beaten by 10. But I look at the effort 2 back well in for the $25,000 tag, making the first start for the barn. And I think it's a pretty decent effort. Finished 3rd, beaten by 4 1/4, and had to go wide at one point and tipped wide and still was coming late. So I think there are some excuses from that most recent performance, so I used this one for second.
And the horse you have a little further down, My Cousin Joe, stretching out to the mile. I thought a promising debut in which he rallied to finish 3rd against Simla, going 7.5 furlongs. As you mentioned when you were putting your ticket together, always love these races in race number 2 when we have the 2-year-olds, 4.5 furlongs, maiden special weights, 7 in the field, and both of us, Mike Yates, if you see Cajun Breeze and you see Mike Yates with a 2-year-old first-time starter, boy, he does an excellent job with them.
Tremendous job. That's the main thing that stood out to me. The last Breeze on April 23rd was sharp 2, 35-4, and that was out of the gate, the second fastest of 16. But just knowing how well the barn does with this angle, I know you use Keita Down next, who does have that one start under his belt. I just think Cajun Puzzler, I would be a little leery to not use this ticket, and kind of stood out to me.
Well, as you mentioned with Keto Dan, he's making his second career start after rallying to finish third in his debut. He rallied to finish third, and Jorge Delgado, pretty sharp with maidens making their second start. 2-year-old coming back a little fast for me, but Jose Morelos atop this only previous runner in the field. So you use that angle in here, someone who's done something that no one else in the field has done. But you all used the 3, Trust Our Journey in the second. I used it in third. Really nice breeding on this horse.
Very good breeding. You look at the siblings and look at their races, but then I see this one's by American Pharaoh. That stood out to me. And Carlos David is another one that does quite well with 2-year-olds and just first-time starters. And I like that this one, compared to some others in here, they did have a 4 furlong Breeze under his belt out of the gate. Most of them just been working at that 3 furlong distance, and it was pretty sharp. So I use this one over Keita Dan, but maybe the experience edge will play in his favor.
And wanted to let everybody know we have 3 pick 4s this afternoon. The first one starts race number 2 with those 2-year-old babies. Third race this afternoon, 7 furlongs, claimers, fillies, and mares, 3 and up non-winners of 2 in life, $6,250. And I agree with you with the number 2, Florado, is dropping to this level today. Followed that maiden breaker at 12.5 level. Didn't run against those 2 lifetime claimers, but this barn, the Noda brothers, Jose Noda here, claimed his horse 2 starts back. I think they're putting this one in a realistic spot.
They've been sharp so far this meet. When you look at her, she was kind of knocking on the door when she was trying to break her maiden, and then she did it quite impressively. She beat a field of 8 on that occasion. We saw the runner-up finish second in a race yesterday on the turf, I believe. But we always talk about this. Sometimes facing, especially at the claiming level, the lower claiming level, facing winners for the first time can be a tall task, just because other ones have just been hitting at that non-winners of 2 and trying to get it done and haven't, and they have an experience edge. And now we're going to slash that claiming price in half. I think that should help her step up.
Well, we have the same super, just boxed around a little differently. You did use the number 6, Starship Blanca, in second. I used it a little further down my ticket.
When I looked at Florado and I looked at Dinner at 5, with 2 starts back when the one finished second, I saw some early foot in there, and I was just wondering if I could find a horse that maybe would sit just off of the pace setters and maybe get a trip. And you look at the Starship Blanca last time out, who did make up some ground, but not really. It was kind of horses tiring in that 5 furlong turf event. So this one's getting back to the dirt, likes the 7 furlong distance, has a 3rd place finish, and actually broke the maiden over the slop at Gulfstream Park West, going 7 furlongs. And I just am thinking this one can maybe just sit off the pace setters and get the trip.
Well, the number 1, Freezeburn, with really interesting name for a horse. I always see that and think this one going to the Victor Barboza Jr. barn, and that's the reason I looked here. 29%, 30% usually with Miguel Vasquez in the saddle. One of those guys, Victor Barboza, at this time of year, you got to give him a second look.
Gadiel Martinez, you're going to get a weight break from those last couple mounts. And when you look at 3 races back, probably the best effort that was at the level and at the distance. And this one also showed early foot, So those last 2, a little bit of a head scratcher, but you mentioned joining a red hot barn.
Let's go to race number 4. We're on the turf at a mile and the 16th. If you're just joining us, turf course is listed as good. These are maiden special weight runners, 3-year-olds and upward. And we both went with the number 6, Majestic Street. Take it away. Let me know why.
Just looking at the others in here, it is a compact field, and to me, this is the one that I think is going to be on the lead, and I think if this one can make the lead, he can kind of have everything go his way. You look in that first turf start, it was not only the first turf start, but it was the first time going longer than 6 furlongs, and seemed to, for once in his career, make the lead and just missed finishing second behind Captain Lava, and just maybe needed that race at a mile on the stretch out. So I use Majestic Street.
I had back chat in second, the number 5 you have in third, who says stretching out after recovering from some trouble at the start, got forced out a little bit, finished 4th behind aforementioned Majestic Street, going 8 panels. Kent Sweezy, Paco Lopez, 3-win day yesterday, I believe. So back chat, I thought, had a shot to be certainly on this ticket.
And when you see the connections, Kent Sweezy and Paco Lopez, they do very well here. They also do well at Monmouth Park, so the connections do quite well. And you mentioned last time out, it was a troubled trip. I'm just not sure if it was enough. There was some trouble early on, but Majestic Street was able to beat this one. And, we're kind of flip-flopped a little bit around here. We used some of the same horses, but for me, I used Backjack a little lower.
Well, the number 2 Golden Tone is listed as a gelding. This son of Toneless is going to get blinkers. We're going to go back and show you this horse's race. Just coming up to the 8th pole in here. You'll see him here, and he is the number 5 Golden Tone, and he just gets completely sawed off here in the race, and just really has nowhere to go after this. It was just one of those trips. Afterwards, you just nowhere to go after that. No, now was he going to win? I don't know. I just wanted to go back and show that for Jane Sabelli, who does a good job. Rajiv Mirage will be in the saddle today. I like the fact that they're going to put gets blinkers this afternoon. Really had no chance last time out. So I like Majestic Street like you. You got other horses, but I wanted to go back and show Golden Tone. Going to give that one another chance.
We always show replays. We talk about, would that make a difference? I do think that certainly made a difference because when he first got into trouble, you can see the rider was trying to navigate, okay, where am I going? There is nowhere to go. And then again, got into trouble once again. And if you look at the debut, I know the buyer isn't stunning, finished second in that field, and it was on the dirt, but there has to be a thought in your mind that there's more there than we saw.
Yeah, so just go back and give that horse a second look. Let's go to race number 5, a mile on the turf starter, optional claimer. Phillies 3-year-old started for $35,000 or less. Scratch both main track onlys, the 1 and the 3 in here. And Smart Spending stretching out to the mile today. She followed her maiden victory going a mile in the 16th. Well, we're going to show you that last race before you talk about it, Ashley. We're going to see this horse turning for home. Just going to see the number 8 that they Smart Spending just has really, one of those places where you just got nowhere to go, get steadied back there, just finding that spot. But I like the way this horse, had a tip out, and there you see it tipping out and running a good second last time out.
And that was going 7.5. Now the mile today. Probably would have loved the mile in that race on April 9th. Probably would have made the difference. And, it was the first time facing winners, but it was huge performance. I like the pedigree on this one for the turf. And since, she's kind of looking at all of her races, she's had 3 great efforts. So I like her stretching out to the mile. And you mentioned she did have some excuses.
Well, what about the number 6 Italian Twin? You got it rated in second. It renews the rivalry, actually, with Smart Spending and Kate's Kingdom.
Yeah, we have a key race again, April 9th. And this is another one that was closing late, did have a little bit of hesitance at the start of the race. And similar to the other one, broke the maiden before that, only at the $35,000 level, but was picked up by Mike Maker. First start in the barn, I think, was respectable. Now on the angle, second start in the barn, always a good angle with Mike Maker. Edwin Gonzalez, I just like the connections. I like the races. And for me, the value is probably going to be more on this horse, and I still think she had some excuses too.
Yeah, Kate's Kingdom, was a little wide last time out. I said all of them behind Smart Spending, who we saw just needed some racing room, and looks like the mile distance is really going to help. Race 6 this afternoon, 5.5 furlongs. These are maiden claiming 3-year-olds. $25,000 down to just $25,000 in here. Got a jockey change on the number 2. I'll let you know what it is. I forgot to write it down, but I know there's a jockey change. We'll see who that is. 5.5 furlongs. Yeah, Loyal Louis, in the Peter Walder barn now.
And I always have a stat for Peter. I feel like every other week. So I do have one here when I was going through the formulator yesterday. Wanted to look at how he does switching horses from the turf to the dirt, because this one, most of the races for him this Sun of Country Day have been on the turf. Last time out, he finished second while in a different barn. So when he makes the switch the last 3 years, he wins at 35% from a sizable sample of 51. In the money 57% of the time. 383 for the ROI, which I never can find this for Peter Walder. This is screaming value. But then again, we look at the morning line here, 2-1, and I think it's rightfully so. Has just been knocking on breaking the maiden the last 2 times out on the turf, and now they're going to switch things up. Joins a red hot barn. I think this is where it maybe all comes together.
Well, everybody knows I'm a big doo-wop fan, and they're probably going to be asking me why I didn't have doo-wop Don on top of my ticket. You do have it in second. Drop into the 25 level for a really good connections with Eddie Plesa Jr.
And the connections do well coming out of those maiden special weights. All 3 efforts for him. They have been against Florida breds. I think the best one was 2 back going the 5 furlong distance. And now there's the addition of Lasix. I know looking at the barn stat, they're 0 for 10 with first-time Lasix, but I'm not going to read into that too much. I think looking at this horse, too, they've tried a couple different things pace-wise, and it really hasn't come together. And the big thing, too, that I saw, Hasn't raced since October, so maybe this one needed some time off to make that first start now as a 3-year-old.
I just want to show you the performance of the number 3, Camp Pendleton, in here. He's going to cut back to 5.5 furlongs. And there you're going to see Camp Pendleton, the one right now, just almost goes down. I don't know how Gadiel Martinez stayed on. What I liked about this was once he straightened him out, he got him going. He ended up finishing 4th. I mean, he was basically eliminated there. And it's amazing how the jock stood on. Gadiel Martinez will be back in the saddle today. So just another race that I wanted to point out. You don't know what this horse was going to do, but you could just see him, closing and running okay. And he basically was totally eliminated in the race.
You saw Gadiel was able to stay on, and then after that, it seemed like Camp Pendleton wanted to lug a little bit because I could see Gadiel's center of balance was still off in the race. And you look at the races before that; they were all at Laurel. They were going a mile and a 16th, slop. So by far his best performance, I think, recently was the most recent race, and he had some issues. And I didn't use him in here, but you never know. I thought the winner, too, Flipping Fish, a first-time starter, looked pretty nice on debut.
Yeah, trained by Antonio Sano, and I say this all the time. These are the type of races Antonio wins all the time. It usually knocks me out of all my lateral wagers, so we'll see how it goes. We're going to take a short break, come back. We got $450,000 in the Rainbow Six jackpot guarantee.
In the 2-path. Ground by Hurst inside. Race. And a quarter of a mile to go, and he's 6 yards out. Last of the 12 as they roll into the backstretch.
Welcome back to Gulfstream today. Ron and Ashley, race number 7 will be a mile on the turf. Maiden claim is 3 and up, 16,000. This is the day you want to play the Rainbow Six with that nice $450,000 jackpot guarantee. We got 2 stakes races in the sequence, so you're going to get some form, and one of them a bunch of scratches. So you single a horse in that stake we'll talk about a little later on. And here's my $43.20 ticket. And I have 3 horses in here with Moonshine Now, Drum and Drummer, one of my favorite named horses, and He Ain't No Saint. 2 deep, I think it's Spare Gun and Vinnie Van Gogh. That's another one from Peter Walder. 3 deep in race number 9. That's a nice betting race. I did go with Flow Motion. In race number 10, that is one of the 2 stakes races, the big drama. We've had some defections in that race. I thought Well Defined was the one to beat. Now I'm more convinced, but I did use Our Mercedes Boy. They both have speed. Maybe it's going to set up for a horse like Old Chestnut, who I didn't use. Now, next stakes race, back-to-back. This is the Honey Rider for the fillies going on the grass. You would think Con Lima, going to be a lot of people singles in there, but I can't leave Porque No off going for its 5th consecutive victory. And my long shot today comes in race number 12. It's Thirsty Owl coming out of a monster key race, which I will talk about when we get to that race. So we'll see how this plays out for $43.20. Interested, Ashley, to see how you started your race number 7 analysis.
So for race 7, we're pretty much in agreement here. We actually have a try. It's our first one of the day. I went to the number 6 in here, Moonshine Now. Just looking at some others in here. Thought last time out, first, facing the maiden claimers for the first time, stepped up a little bit, finished 4th, beaten by 2 1/4. The big thing is we hadn't seen this one since all the way back in September at Delaware Park against Maiden Special Weight Company. So I think this one certainly needed a race last time out and did have some traffic early on in the race and had to kind of check and pull on the brakes a little bit. So there's also the Christophe Clement factor. There's a lot going for this one, so I used Moonshine Now, and you did too.
Yeah, for all those reasons you mentioned, he rallied to finish fourth last time out. Christoph had a similar-looking horse, I think, yesterday or the day before they came back. He said didn't run that well on the dirt, but came back and actually won. So the barn usually spots them when they could run. Drum and Drummer is another drop into this level this afternoon. Stalked the pace, finished fifth, was beaten 3 lengths at the 25 level for Kelly Breen and Paco in one of those Paco zones again yesterday. He had 3 winners on the cards. I thought Drum and Drummer was a logical contender.
Finally kind of came to life last time out. Didn't really show anything in those other 2 races. They were both over the dirt. Debut, draw a line through it, was over the slop. Clearly this horse didn't want anything. Did show some early foot and quit in there. Last time out, I just think it was a better performance. It was at the 25 level. And from a pedigree standpoint, I know we talked about this a few weeks back when this horse raced. Nice pedigree. This is a half sibling to Redeemed. Graded Stakes winner, who the big race that stood out to me, and you start seeing those names again, was second in the Amsterdam behind Caleb's Posse. So Redeemed, not a bad horse at all, and we'll see if this one can now improve on the drop and making that second turf start.
The 3 He Ain't No Sin has been knocking on the door in 4 consecutive races at the 16 level. I think he's a must-use on your Trine Super, but not so sure about that top spot.
No, we got that 0-10 going. It's not that bad. He's in the money half the time, but the last couple times I think he's gotten some good trips and just hasn't connected the dots yet. So I rather use him underneath than on top. I think the other 2 have shown a little bit more.
Let's go to race number 8, 6 furlongs allowance, optional claimer state, bred 3 and up. The optional claiming price 12.5 kicks off our late pick 5 in the afternoon. And we're both in agreement here with the number 3 Spear Gun, who's turning back to 3/4. After responding in the first race after the claim by Mr. Gracida with a duel throughout second, he was beaten a half length. Mr. Paco. Hey, Paco better have a good day today when I'm looking at my analysis here.
We hyped him up already, so we'll see what that means. It could mean one of 2
Yeah,
things.
exactly.
You mentioned last time out, he really wasn't respected and had that pace duel all throughout going the 6.5, and I think the cutback is kind of key. I think 6 is perfect. And looking at the other races, I mean, he really hasn't done much of anything wrong. He's never finished worse than 4th. I mean, they tried him at a mile. That was one of his poorer performances. But looking at his last couple, they've had him close to the pace. They've had him try to close from off the pace. I think he's versatile. And, the connections, they've had a good year so far. They don't send out a lot of runners, but they're 2 for 12. And now you see Paco on this horse again. I got to like it.
Yep. And what about the number 5, Star Wancho? I have a third. You have in second. This one certainly stretching out to his best distance with 27 races at the distance. 5 wins, 7 seconds, 7 thirds. Rallied to finish second, going 5.5. I think this 6 furlongs is going to help this horse.
He's closed in those last 2, and I think more recently, the most recent performance behind Gangley, who I actually thought was an outsider in the stakes race, but is scratched later today. Pretty nice performance. Was a huge price, and I think you're always kind of getting value on this horse and very consistent underneath. You mentioned seasoned at the distance and just in general, but you can see most of them are minor placings, and that's why I use this one underneath. Chantal Sutherland climbing aboard. I just think this one's sneaky here based off those last 2, and it's been doing good in the barn.
Well, Vinny Van Gogh, I like this afternoon. You have a little further down on your ticket. Going to the Peter Walder barn after the claim, drops to the 12 level, duel for the lead, and finished 4th against 16 condition claimers. Peter Walder conditioned his horse last summer, and he's pretty good. So it's a reclaim by him. You have to go back to last summer, but I think he's got a pretty good shot this afternoon. Maybe not to beat Spear Gun, but to be on the ticket.
He scares me because he does have a pretty strong work on April 24th. It was the 6th fastest of 120 workers that morning. And last time out, he went to the front. That was against $16,000 claimers. But as you mentioned, Walder's taken him back into the barn. For me, his form's just a little inconsistent. He seems to have a good race, then a poor race. So I didn't know what to do with him. Thought the price might be short, so I used him lower.
Let's go to race number 9, about 7.5 furlongs on the turf. Claimers at 4 and up, non-winners of a race since November 1st, $16,000. Tough way to start the late pick 4. I like this race today because there's so many different ways you can go.
It is a tough way to start the late pick 4. So, of course, I spread in here, and this is the race that I think we are on, just different pages, different books. I just think this is such a tough race, and you mentioned that going through the Rainbow 6 ticket. Use a couple runners in here. I do think Flow Motion, the number 3, looks extremely tough, as well as the number 5, Freedom Matters. Also like Max KO. This one's out of the Mike Maker barn, who's got 2 wins here over the turf course. But if you remember a few weeks back, I was really high on Farley, so I had to use Farley again. I think he had trouble here on April 10th, so I used 4 in that first leg. Then in race 10, I went to the 2 same horses that you did. Looking at the big drama, I think it's between the number 5, Well Defined, and the 6, Art Mercedes Boy. Race 11 is the Honey Rider, and I agree, Kunlima looks extremely tough out of the Todd Pletcher barn, but you have to respect Kent Sweezy's Poor K No, who's has just been sensational in her last 4 starts. And then finally, in the last race on the card, we have maiden $16,000 claimers going a mile on the turf. I spread in here. I think the number 1 Navajo Creed and 2 Young Thomas. They're horses you have to use, but I'm most interested in the number 8 Dream of Anfield, who's going to be making his second start on the turf for $24. I thought it was reasonable.
Yes, and you did the right thing, I believe, by taking a lot of horses in this race. And talking about Flow Motion, a 5-time local turf winner, drops into this 16-dated claimer. First starts and finishing 6th against those 25 optional claimers here during December. Jane Sibeli's really good with this type of layoff. She's almost batting about 30%, and she has this hard-knocking 7-year-old training forwardly for the return. So there's a lot of questions, hasn't been seen in a while. Coming back in a dated claimer, they're willing to get rid of this horse at the 16 level. I can understand wanting to go other places. Looks like the one to beat. Then after that, things get really dicey in this race.
Kind of wonder a little bit about him. I did use him on top. You mentioned James does a tremendous job getting horses off the layoff, and he's been okay off the layoff in the past, which is why I used him. He only had a couple months off, but he ran well between May and July. I know we're talking about a bigger time frame, but last time out, he took a lot of respect in that race, and he didn't show anything. And instead of racing him again to see if he needed a race, it looks like they gave him more time off again, which I like that angle. You mentioned great at the distance, great here at Gulfstream Park, and I think he's got a class edge compared to some others and just better performances. So he's certainly going to need to show still more than he did last time out. But if everything's, I think, pretty much together and he's at 90% of what he used to be, he'll be fine.
What about Freedom Matters? I have this one a little rated a little further down on the ticket for Alan Iwinski.
Previously trained by Alan Owinski in the past, and that's a big thing for me. We always talk about this, and I know this is one that's typically picking up those minor checks, and I still use him, for second in here, but he's been a hot commodity. Everyone wants him. He's always been claimed in his last 3 efforts. Last time out, he finished 4th, beaten by 2 lengths, but I think he could have at least gotten 3rd. He did have some traffic. He had to check in there, so I think his last performance there is an excuse. And then look at the effort 2 back. See the winner? It's Croy. We've talked about Croy. That is such a nice horse who just gives it his all every time, and another hot commodity here. So he closes from off the pace. He sometimes gets himself into trouble, but I don't see why he can't get a minor share.
The number 2, Face of Victory, is a horse I used in second, turning back slightly to the about 7.5 furlong distance after setting the pace, finishing 3rd when facing this level of competition, going a mile for Emmy Gaffney. And you got a strong front-running jockey in here, Embassy El Jaramillo in the saddle. So that is my speed play in the race. I just want to touch on, before we get to your 8 horse in here, I know you're going to talk about Farley, who you want to win. All around moves to the Kelsey Danner barn after the claim responded to the drop down in competition, even 4th place finish against those horses on the dirt. But this is a gelded son of Caleb's posse, really bred on both sides of the family tree to respond favorably to the surface and distance. So I got a horse with speed, and I got a horse that I like the breeding. I don't know if they're going to run a step in here behind Flow Motion, but that's how I saw it. Now we want to talk about the number 8 horse in here.
This is Max KO. This one's out of the Mike Maker barn, who last time out finished 5th after setting the pace, but that was going a mile on the dirt. Gloria Florida won that and was entered today in the big drama. Now, for me, looking at some of the other races, I just think these last 3 or 4 races have been extremely tough. You see Venezuelan Hug won 2 of them, a very, very nice turf horse. So when you go down the page, you start to see better performances. And the big thing with Max KO, he does have early foot. And just looking at other runners in here, a little worried if he makes the lead. You mentioned the number 2, Face of Victory, went to the front last time out. I think he can hang around for at least a share in here, and he's getting some class relief from his last several efforts.
Yeah, and we talked about that, Farley. I know you thought he ran pretty well last time out, so she's putting, but that's the best way to go in this race, number 9, really. Let's go to the first of 2 stakes races on the day, the big drama. 7 furlongs, 3 and up. Florida bred, $75,000. Got the scratch bird that hit us in this race with the scratches of the 2, 3, 4, and number 7. I liked Well Defined all along. This one loves this distance, not loves, runs well at it. 5 starts, 2 wins. I'm talking about 7 furlongs, of course. And this one turns back, set the pace. I just think this horse has got some back class. Love the work that Kathleen O'Connell does. Embassy El Jaramillo atop. I think the speed of the speed, even though our Mercedes boy is in now.
They're both speedy. I think when you look at them, well-defined, as you mentioned, maybe has an edge looking at the distance aspect of it, just having those 2 wins, where our Mercedes boy has only tried it twice and does have a second-place finish. But the last 2 efforts have just been so game. One was at the 7 furlong effort, and then more recently at a mile, and he just got nipped, but very, very game horse. So For me, I also use this horse. You know, there's some scratches in here, so we're not going to get 9-2. I think this horse could be favored in here. But when you look at our Mercedes Boy coming out of the sprint race at Tampa, going 6 furlongs. Lost some ground there. The winner was able to draw clear in there, but it was a tougher group than some of these others have faced in their most recent start. And this one does have early foot too, but I think well-defined can get the job done.
Well, if you're looking for closers, the horse we have in third, both of us didn't use this one on our ticket. Talking about Old Chestnut, he's back on the main track, returned from an extended layoff. He chased the pace, finished second against those optional claimers, going 5 on the grass. He's a son of Speightstown, and like I say, he's going to sit the trip behind this horse. He's got to prove he can do it on the turf.
Yeah,
on the dirt, excuse me.
There you go. He's got to prove it because his only dirt race was in the Jimmy Winkfield at Aqueduct, going today's 7 furlong distance. And I don't think it was a great performance. It was fourth. It was even. But you mentioned if he can handle the dirt and he gets the setup, because you have to think the other two, they're going. And then you also have to factor in it's a compact field, and it's very compact. So I think that becomes more of a rider's race as well.
Yeah, rider's race. And I sort of like the speed of the speed when you get those compact fields. They look like they can control it. Well, we got another stakes race on the card. It's race 11, a mile and the 16th on the turf. These are 3-year-old fillies. This $75,000, the Honey Rider, and not the case with the scratches in here, but boy, Con Lima, a multiple graded stakes performer on the Gulfstream turf. He's headed back to the grass after setting the pace, finishing second to Crazy Beautiful, who ran yesterday. Ran yesterday in the Oaks up at Churchill Downs.
Yeah, you look at the top 3 in there. You did see him in the Kentucky Oaks yesterday, and I think the move, Todd had talked about, the horse had raced well on the dirt in the past. Why not try the spot? And this one was the pace setter in there and just didn't prevail. But you look at the turf races, 3 wins here at Gulfstream Park. The worst placing was a second. I know the win 2 back in the Here Comes the Bride was due to a disqualification, but Spanish Love Affair did cause some interference. This one does not need the lead, but does have some early foot, and some others do in here. So I don't really know where she's going to be. I'm not really concerned. I just think on paper she's the classiest of the bunch.
Well, we've been talking about Porquet No, and how could we not? Because this one's going to get that little bit of a class check today. She put together really an impressive 4-race win streak. A previous winner at this mile in the 16th distance, which I like. You got Miguel Vasquez in the saddle this afternoon. Edgar Zayden must be up at Tampa riding today, guys, and we haven't mentioned his name. I got to check on that. So Porquet No, really, what do you get from Porquet No? I'm not leaving him off the ticket.
I couldn't leave her off the ticket as well. This is a really nice daughter of Wicked Strong. And you look at the connections. Fano Racing's got to be really happy with this one because you look at the progression. She breaks her maiden, and then she steps up each and every time. She still wins, but she also shows improvement in her figures, which is a big thing we sometimes don't see. She's either stayed the same or at least showed some improvement. And last time out, she had her career best buyer of an 80. Pretty big winner. Honey Pants and Sweet Pearl, they took some respect in that race as well. So I'm wondering if she can just continue to improve here. She's going to have a very tough rival in here, but the barn, Kent Sweezy's done a tremendous job with her, and when you see what she's done, you can't leave her off.
Well, if you like Todd Petrie, he's also got the 6 in here, Coworth Park, and the adage of the longer price of the young couple entry, beaten 2 lengths in the 1 mile Sanibel Island last time out to Daughter of Lee. Edgar Prado in the saddle this afternoon. I believe Edgar's in the saddle this afternoon. So just a horse in there. What about the number 2 real quickly? Mischievous Dream.
This one's out of the Christophe Clement barn. We haven't seen her since November over the soft going at Belmont, which I don't think she liked in the Chelsea Flower. Prior to that, she had a nice second at Monmouth Park, and she won the sorority there, which last year was a pretty big field. She was able to close from off the pace. She has a little bit of versatility now. It has been a long layoff, but it's Christophe. I don't really worry about that as much as some other trainers, and I think she's done a lot so far, but we're going to just see how she can perform off that layoff.
Full field of 11 runners with no scratches in the finale today. 1 mile on the turf. These are maiden claimers 3 and up. $16,000. Got my long shot in here, and it's the 5 Thirsty Owlers dropping to the 16 level and getting both laces and blinkers after encountering trouble at the start. Really failed to get on track in the race. So you got to dig deep after watching that last race. But listen to this. In that race, 5 horses came out to win their next start out of 6 horses. I'm a key race guy. I almost fell off the chair when I see 5 winners out of 6 starters. So I'm going to take a shot with Thirsty Owl today, ridden by my buddy Mike Pino. So I just think this horse can run very well this afternoon.
You mentioned that angle of it, and now factor in that was made in special weight. Now we're going in for 16. I mean, that's huge. I didn't know there were that many winners, so wish I would have known that sooner, Ron. But see, first-time Lasix blinkers on. I mean, if you can get anywhere near that price, I know you'll be very excited. And Mario Pino, when he gets in the saddle, I think, he's a great, tremendous rider, has hit so many milestones. So the connections here, they're still looking for the first win, at the spring-summer meet, but this would be a sneaky one in here.
I mean, the one to beat is you got the right one. I got it in second beside my long shot. I think his Dream of Anfield is an obvious choice in this race after stalking the pace, finishing 4th in his career turf debut for Georgina Baxter.
You mentioned stalking the pace, was just off of it, did have the lead just for a split second in there, but this is a race that, in my opinion, there isn't a lot of pace. So I'm wondering if Dream of Anfield actually makes a lead in here. And didn't take any respect last time out, but stretching out, first time turf, first time off the layoff. I thought it was a game performance, and I'm just excited to see what this one can do second time out.
And you got Young Thomas in third. I think he's got a shot today.
Yeah, to me, Navajo Creed and Young Thomas, I got reservations about both of them. I looked at Young Thomas, and I just saw Saffie Joseph Jr. I already have to look at the horse. And last time out, won a mile at Tampa against $32,000 maiden claimers and really didn't show anything. It says no threat, and I think that's the best way to describe it in the run line. But 2 starts back. Second, beaten by 3/4 of a length in a sizable field of 8 going a mile. That was $20,000 claimers. It wasn't maiden claimers, $20,000. So a little hit or miss on this one. Maybe this one can step up second time off the layoff, and the connections, they do very, very well here at Gulfstream Park.
Yeah, you mentioned Saffie Joseph Jr., so we'll go quickly now to our lightning round, and a pretty interesting lightning round it will be. And just going to go and see yesterday, of course, the Kentucky Oaks, and we're going to show you the stretch run of that right now. And Malahat wins that 147th Kentucky Oaks, and good performance. John Velasquez and Todd Pletcher.
These fillies did a tremendous job kind of battling it out. I think my favorite part I know everyone's talking about is at the wire. Irad Ortiz gives Johnny a big pat and like a high five to congratulate him. But it was a nice throwdown in the stretch, and not everything went her way in that race. So she's a tremendous, tremendous filly, and it looks like the sky's the limit for her.
Yeah, that's very nice horsemanship there between those two jocks. I mean, that's the old and the new, the changing of the guard, even though Johnny is nowhere near done yet, and he's just a fantastic rider. Talking about the Kentucky Derby, Kendrick Camucci, we had down here a couple of times, one of the nicest guys you're ever going to meet. He's going to try and make history, become the first jockey in 119 years, that is African-American jockey, to win the Kentucky Derby. Just a great guy, and he's loved by everyone.
He is loved by everyone. I saw on Twitter yesterday, he was just having a great time. He had a mount in the Kentucky Oaks, was just dancing and just having a great time in the jocks room. But you want to talk about the last 12 to 18 months for Kendrick. They've been tremendous. He had his first Grade 1 winner. He won the George Wolfe Award. I mean, I feel like this would be kind of the icing on the cake, if you will, if he can, win the Derby.
I think he won his first Aqueduct meet, too. I'm pretty sure about that. So, yeah, it's great for him. And you win the George Wolfe Award. You're liked by everyone, as we've been saying. You've been watching the last couple of days our selections with the first bet selections, the AI selections. If you want to, go back and see that, how to handle that, they have a really nice tutorial that you can go and check and see how to use it. And why first bet? Learn how to make smarter bets. So it offers information and tutorials. It's go on. You just click on the first bet. And it's really interesting. You got all sorts of different angles you can use to try and find a winner.
It can be intimidating trying to use some sort of new technology. Even for me, just changing the type of form I use is difficult. So it's nice that those tutorials are available and they make it a little easier to use. But you mentioned just so many angles, and you can combine them and find interesting things and hopefully get some winners while you're doing it.
Yeah, I have a tough time putting paper in the printer downstairs, so that I definitely had to see the tutorial. Let's go and show another race at Churchill Downs yesterday, and it was the 8 Bells, and I just thought this was pretty interesting. Going obligatory and day out of the office run 1, 2 in those, and day out of the office, I should say, broke its maiden last summer right here at Gulfstream Park, and obligatory, of course, one for Bill Mott broke its maiden here. So a couple of our graduates running 1, 2 in that race, and just great to see. I bet day out of the office, but it was good to see Mr. Mott win and pay a good price too.
Yeah, and it was a good trip. I mean, you saw that horse just flying down the stretch and was going to get the job done. But, we always follow the Gulfstream Park grad. Just curious to see where they end up next, and to see him shine on the big stage is always a good thing.
Well, Kentucky Derby. Let's check out our picks today. We'll see how we're doing. And there you go. There's our picks. I have the number 15 horse in here right on top, and that is Ruck Your World. And you went with Known Agenda, who I have in second. Got to deal with that inside post, but I think this horse is on the improve.
The post position is not ideal, but I think as you've said, he's improved since wearing blinkers in his last 2 starts. He seemed to kind of flip the dimension and just go to another level, and I really loved his win here last time out. So I used him. I know 6-1 morning line. I've been looking at the live odds. Last I knew, it's a lot better than 6-1, which I'll take any day of the week. And unlike yesterday, our top 3 are just kind of mixed around, but it looks like you have a price underneath, and it's Soup and Sandwich.
Yes, Soup and Sandwich. Yeah, I just been reading about this horse. He's lightly raced. You remember he, finished in front of a lot of horses in the Florida Derby. And if you listen to his jockey, Tyler Gaffleone, he's very high on this horse. So maybe not to win it on your Super ticket. Actually put a couple of bucks to win on Soup and Sandwich.
For me, my long shot is going to be the number 11 Dynamic One. We talk about, when trainers send out multiple horses, and then it's Todd Pletcher sending out multiple horses. Just think he's one that's got some wonky trips in his last couple starts, and I think if he can just sit off the pace, which is where I expect him, maybe he can sneak in the trifecta or the superfecta, and that's what we both know. I'm always betting.
Yep. Yeah, you got to bet. What's the fun? You got to bet something there. So that's how we see the card. It's still this morning, yes, 1 minute before noon. So we will be back throughout the afternoon trying to give you some useful insights. Good luck with all your selections today.